Council of Elders and the Blind King deep within southwestern Nigeria, surrounded by verdant hills and meandering rivers, rests the historic village of Ijebu-Isiwo. This community, rich in culture and tradition, thrived under the guidance of its leaders. However, a severe drought had gripped the land, and the people of Ijebu-Isiwo were suffering. The tale of the Council of Elders and their confrontation with the blind king, Oba Adeyemi, unfolds as a poignant reminder of the responsibilities of leadership and the consequences of neglect. The drought. For months, the sun blazed mercilessly over Ijebu-Isiwo, turning the once fertile fields into barren wastelands. The rivers that flowed with life had dwindled to mere trickles, and the villagers, once vibrant and hopeful, now wore faces etched with despair. The crops failed, and the livestock perished. The elders, wise and respected, gathered in the sacred grove beneath the ancient baobab tree, their hearts heavy with worry. Oba Adeyemi has turned a blind eye to our plight, lamented Elder Adebayo, his voice trembling with emotion. We must confront him before it is too late. The other elders nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting the gravity of the situation. They had witnessed the consequences of inaction in the past, and they knew that the time had come to remind their king of his duties. The confrontation. The following day, the Council of Elders made their way to the royal palace, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and determination. As they approached the grand entrance, they were met by the guards, who hesitated before allowing them to enter. The air was thick with tension as they stepped into the opulent throne room, where Oba Adeyemi sat, adorned in his regal attire, seemingly oblivious to the suffering outside his walls. Your Majesty, Elder Adebayo began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. We come to speak on behalf of the people of Ijebu-Isiwo. The drought has ravaged our lands, and our people are starving. We implore you to take action. Oba Adeyemi, his eyes clouded with indifference, waved a dismissive hand. The rains will come, and the land will heal. There is no need for alarm. The elders exchanged worried glances, knowing that this was not the response they had hoped for. Elder Adebanyo, a fierce advocate for the people, stepped forward. Your Majesty, we have seen leaders before you who ignored the cries of their subjects. King Olufemi turned a blind eye to the famine, and his reign ended in ruin. Do not let history repeat itself. The king shifted uncomfortably in his throne, but his pride prevented him from acknowledging their words. I am the king. I will not be swayed by tales of the past. The haunting visions. Days turned to weeks. The drought continued to ravage Ijebu-Isiwo. The villagers grew weaker, their spirits crushed under the weight of despair. Meanwhile, Oba Adeyemi remained ensconced in his palace, refusing to acknowledge the reality outside. However, as the nights grew darker, he began to experience haunting visions of his ancestors. One particular night, as he lay in bed, a figure appeared before him, a ghostly visage of King Olufemi, his eyes filled with sorrow. Adeyemi, he whispered, his voice echoing through the chamber. You have forgotten your people. You must remember the weight of your crown. Startled, the king sat up, his heart racing. What do you want from me? He demanded, but the apparition faded into the shadows, leaving him trembling. The following night, another ancestor appeared, Queen Adebisi, known for her wisdom and compassion. You are blind to the suffering around you, she said softly. A leader who ignores the cries of their people will face dire consequences. You must act before it is too late. Haunted by these visions, Oba Adeyemi began to question his choices. He could no longer ignore the reality of the drought or the pain etched on the faces of his people. The weight of his ancestors' words pressed heavily on his conscience, and he realized that he could not continue down this path of neglect. The turning point. Determined to confront his past mistakes, Oba Adeyemi summoned the Council of Elders once more. This time, He approached them with humility, his heart open to their counsel. "Elders," he began, his voice trembling with emotion, "I have failed you and the people of Ijebu-Isiwo. I have been blind to their suffering, and for that, I am deeply sorry." Elder Adeyemi, taken aback by the king's sincerity, nodded slowly. "Your Majesty, it is not too late to make amends. We must come together to find a solution." With the elders' guidance, Oba Adeyemi devised a plan to address the drought. They organized a communal gathering, inviting the villagers to share their struggles and ideas. The king listened intently as the people spoke of their hardships, their voices filled with desperation and hope. Together, they decided to dig wells to access underground water sources and to plant drought-resistant crops. The king pledged to provide resources and support, ensuring that no one would go hungry again. As the villagers worked side by side, a sense of unity and purpose blossomed in Ijebu. The redemption. As the weeks passed, the efforts of the community began to bear fruit. The wells provided much-needed water, and the new crops flourished despite the harsh conditions. The villagers, once despondent, now worked with renewed vigor, their spirits lifted by the king's commitment to their welfare. Oba Adeyemi, transformed by his experiences, became a visible presence among his people. He joined them in the fields, sharing in their labor and celebrating their successes. The bond between the king and his subjects grew stronger, and the village of Ijebu-Isiwo began to heal. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the land, Oba Adeyemi stood before the villagers. "I have learned that true leadership is not about power, but about service," he declared, his voice filled with conviction. "I promise to always listen to your voices and to never again turn a blind eye to your suffering." The villagers erupted in cheers, their hearts swelling with gratitude. They had witnessed the transformation of their king, and they knew that Ijebu-Isiwo would thrive once more. The legacy. Years later, as the rains returned and the land flourished, the story of Oba Adeyemi and the Council of Elders became a cherished tale passed down through generations. The villagers spoke of the blind king who had learned to see, and they honored the wisdom of their ancestors who had guided him back to the path of righteousness. The moral of this tale echoes through the ages. The king who shuts his eyes during famine in the land will soon see ancestors. A leader who ignores the suffering of their subjects will ultimately face dire consequences, possibly leading to their downfall or death. Lessons from the Tale. Podcast title: The Blind King's Redemption, Episode 1. The Weight of Leadership. Discuss the responsibilities of leadership and the importance of being attuned to the needs of the people. Episode 2. The Consequences of Inaction. Explore historical examples of leaders who ignored their subjects and the repercussions they faced. Episode 3. The Power of Community. Highlight the strength found in unity and collaboration during times of crisis. Episode 4. The Journey of Redemption. Analyze the transformation of Oba Adeyemi and the significance of humility and accountability in leadership. Episode 5. Lessons for Future Generations. Reflect on the enduring lessons from the tale and how they apply to contemporary leadership challenges. In conclusion, the story of the Council of Elders and the Blind King serves as a timeless reminder of the importance of compassion, responsibility, and the enduring bond between a leader and their people. As the sun sets over Ijebu, the echoes of the past continue to guide the present, ensuring that the lessons learned will never be forgotten.